Environmental Site Assessment. What is Phase 1 Environmental Site Assessment ESA? Let's start with an example. Imagine you just purchased a 25-acre property in a prime location along a major thoroughfare. The location is perfect for a brand new mixed use development. Unfortunately, you were unaware that the site had been a functional fuel storage facility for 65 years, starting in the 1950s. The housekeeping was noted to be fair throughout the majority of the buildings and property. However, given that the evaluation would need to look for the evidence of underground storage tank USTs, spills or leaks, and other potential sources of contamination. Furthermore, the land must be cleaned up to the regulatory standards before you may start building there. You can be held legally and financially accountable for the process as the present owner of the property. A Phase 1 investigation is carried out on a piece of property or business by a qualified professional who must meet specific professional requirements. Often, this person is a qualified professional engineer or professional geoscientist. They will look into the property's current or previous uses. What previously occurred on the site? Has the site's soil or groundwater been harmed by the past or present uses? Are there any petroleum related products or substances kept on the property? What makes this information so crucial? Because Phase 1 is intended to determine whether any conditions exist that may be suggestive of the release of hazardous materials or petroleum products at the site, either currently or in the past. So, how do you know if you need a Phase 1 environmental site assessment? In Canada, a Phase 1 environmental site assessment ESA is typically conducted to assess the potential environmental risk associated with a particular property. The purpose of a Phase 1 ESA is to identify any potential environmental concerns that may exist, such as contamination or hazardous materials that could impact the site's value or pose risks to human health or the environment. Generally, you may need a Phase 1 ESA in Canada if you are considering purchasing or developing a property that may have a history of industrial or commercial use, or if the property is located in an area with a high potential for environmental contamination. For example, suppose the property is located near a gas station. In that case, landfill or industrial site, a Phase 1 ESA may be necessary to determine if there is any contamination of the property. In Canada, the Canadian Standards Association CSA has established standards for conducting Phase 1 environmental site assessments. It is known as Canadian Standards Association Z768-01. This standard provides guidance on the process and scope of the assessment, as well as the qualifications of the qualified professionals who will conduct the assessment. Ultimately, the decision to conduct a Phase 1 ESA in Canada will depend on various factors, including the intended use of the property, the property's location and history, and the requirements of lenders or regulatory agencies. It is recommended to consult with a qualified professional to determine if Phase 1 environmental site assessment is necessary for your specific situation. Let's talk about what are the common contaminants of concern or COC you might find on a property site. We would start at volatile organic compound, or we call it as VOCs. It is a wide range of organic chemicals with a high vapor pressure at room temperature, meaning they quickly evaporate into the air. They are commonly found in many products and materials such as paints, adhesives, cleaning agents, fuels, and solvents. The next one is metals. Metals are naturally present in the environment. However, high quantities of specific metals can have a detrimental effect on both individuals and ecosystems. Agricultural practices, mining, photo processing, and electroplating are few everyday activities that lead to metal contamination. Next one is petroleum. Not only does petroleum include volatile organic compounds, but it also directly harms living organisms. For instance, benzene, toluene, ethyl benzene, and xylenes, or what we call BDEX, are present in gasoline. Underground storage tanks, or USTs, gas stations, oil and gas exploration, and auto service centers are familiar places where petroleum pollution can occur. Now, Now we know what environmental site assessment is and the factors that we need to consider, we need to know what is or what is not included in getting one. Here are the four components of environmental site assessment in phase 1. The first step is a thorough examination of properties' historical records, which include historical air photographs, fire insurance plans, historical topographic maps, water well records, ecology areas, historical city directories, and easily accessible government environmental records of the site, such as spills, fuel tank registrations, fire, vandalism, or other incidents that may have resulted in contamination. To put in another way, any and all records we could uncover could provide qualified professionals with information regarding the previous uses of the project property. The next one is interview with property owners and other key personnels. Interviews with the current or previous owners of the property, the tenant, and anyone who could shed light on the historical and present usage of the site comprises the second part of this phase 1. The interview could guide qualified professionals in comprehending the property's current conditions, historical events, and potential future developments. The third one is the physical inspection of the property and the surrounding area. A thorough site inspection, which includes looking at all building exteriors and interiors of the property's limits, is the third step in phase 1 environmental site assessment. The presence of features like fuel or chemical storage tanks, the presence of spills and stains in the soil, and other activities similar to this on the site are a few things to check for carefully. It's significant to highlight that Phase 1 is restricted to visual reconnaissance only. Phase 1 does not involve sampling or testing. Instead, there is only talking, reading, and observing. When sampling becomes necessarily, a phase 2 environmental site assessment becomes essential. What's the result then? The qualified professionals are responsible for concluding the history of the site based on its previous usage, recognizing er, environmental concerns found, and making recommendations for any additional investigation that the client specifically requests after going over the documentation and site that has taken place. The fourth and the last component is the actual phase 1 report. One more thing to keep in mind, the process is often finished if no environmental issues are discovered or the professionals deem it insignificant. Phase 2 activities are usually carried out if significant, recognized environmental concerns are present and the qualified professional advised so. In order to determine whether there may be contamination in or under a piece of property, Phase 1 environmental site assessment is a document that integrates information from a site examination, records review, se- several sources, and interviews with individuals. So that would be all. So I hope you know now what is the Phase 1 environmental site assessment is. Thank you.